February 7, 2025. This is the S&P 500 E Futures Mini on 2000 tick chart using NinjaTrader 8. This is how I saw the charts today. So in the pre-market, it was kind of chopping around, then it rallied, and then it did this strange, I guess, big swings with consolidations in between, and it was very choppy through here. This is how I marked it up. So I didn't really find one big dominating channel, so I was playing a lot of these short and trend channels. On top of that, there was a lot of announcements made today by both Trump and a few of his representatives. He had a press conference, and I marked these blue dots where the volatility really, really increased in a very short amount of time. So when I zoom in, you're going to see like this is in the span of 1 minute. You see how many candles printed? There's actually only about 2 minutes, and it's printed, I think, like 10 to 15 bars. So that's quite a lot because that's 2,000 trades flashing through. 15 bars, each bar, in about 1 to 2 minutes. And it did the same thing here and here. It's because he came out and he kind of announced a couple of things. The market took it a different way. And on top of that, the overall price action was a little, I would say, kind of tricky because there were some setups, but they all fell short for one reason or another. I did mark a few of them. And also the only economic data that came out was at 5:30 Pacific Standard. Well, the only economic data that might have moved the market, which is right here. As you can see, it caused this big flush down, rapid flush down, and recovery. So I took a total of one trade today. It was profitable. It was really early in the day, right here. And then I didn't really take any other trades after that, just because these blue dots, as I mentioned, they kind of showed up and they kind of wreaked havoc on any potential setup you might have taken. So it just made me extra cautious, similar to what kind of happened yesterday. But yesterday was a little more slower. So in the pre-market, it's just kind of chopping. I find this green up channel break, and it kind of goes in a more shallow yellow up channel. So it looks like it's spiking the channel. This is pre-market high and pre-market low. I'm going to go ahead and delete those because they didn't really come into play or have that big effect. So I'm going to go ahead and delete them for now just to clear up the charts. Also, this bigger channel going down didn't really come into play or help too much for trade setups. But I'll leave it there for now, then I'll delete it later. So it opens, it pushes above the pre-market high. Technically, there's a triple test here. It's a first entry long pullback, second entry long. The second entry long I thought was kind of a possible trade. I like that it made a double, actually it didn't make a double bottom. It moved one tick below and flushed up. So the signal bar isn't that great, but the trigger bar is great that it moved one tick below and then engulfed the previous signal bar. Also, you have this yellow up channel. It's bouncing off the confirmed support and bouncing off the EMA. So I thought this was a possible trade, but I wanted to wait for a higher low just in case. So you wait about, I would say about 2 minutes, actually 4 minutes, and the higher low actually shows up. So this higher low is a little more aggressive, but I did end up taking this trade. So I'm looking at this, I'm seeing first entry long, second entry long, EMA is holding, yellow up channel is holding. I see this, I see it as a higher low. I also saw it as a new low, first entry short, second entry short. Second entry short has technically failed. I like that this signal bar for the second entry short failure is engulfing the previous bar and is a close to the high. It pushed through this triple test. So I'm thinking there's enough momentum here to get a quick 1-point scalp. So I actually entered one tick above. Let's see. So it's 61.17, and I entered at 61.17. I got a little bit of slippage, but I wanted to enter 61.17.25. Entered a little late, was able to flush up, get my 5-tick scalp, and move my runner from below here to 1 point above break even, and unfortunately my runner got stopped out. So I was seeing this as a potential push out, and I was looking for a test of this high. Then prices continue moving in this yellow up channel, fits pretty nicely. I'm waiting for it to either touch the high side or the low side to look for a trade. It hits this, and this is actually where the second economic data that came out, but I didn't think it was going to have that big a news. It was the preliminary consumer sentiment and inflation expectation. And I put a blue dot because this happened. So you can see from this candle to this candle is only 4 seconds. Then this candle to this candle is another 6 seconds. So that's already like 4,000 trades, not contracts, but trades, because each contract, there could be like 1,000 contracts on each trade. So this is just a high volume very reactive drop down. It was it wasn't expected, but fortunately there was no setup there to trap me. But flushes down, clearly broke through this yellow up channel and is moving back into the pre-market range. So at the time I was thinking, okay, maybe it's going to be range rules, but this is such a huge drop. I'm not looking to go short and I'm not looking to go long. It's just too risky. I did see a new low here. It's a first entry short, second entry short. I marked it with a arrow, but there's no real setup because it's too far from the EMA. This is just high volatility. And look at the timestamp is 7:02, and this happened at 7 o'clock. So this is in a matter of 2 minutes, and it already printed over 10 candles of 2,000 trades each. So that's just telling me to be super cautious. Prices then continue moving down. This transparent channel doesn't exist yet. I drew it in much later. It's just kind of oscillating. It does create a new low. It's a first entry short. Technically, I have a second entry short here, but it's a bad signal bar above the EMA. It did break the green up channel, made two pushes up. Technically, only one real push, but you could count it as two. So you could think there's a potential opportunity to go short, but the EMA is right there. So it's not something I feel comfortable with. It slows down on this orange down channel, no clean setups, moves, bounces again on this eventual developed yellow up channel, but there's no clean setups, only first entries. Again, you only have a first entry short here, another first entry. You have technically have a second entry short here. It's far from the EMA. I'm not really sure I trust this yellow up channel because you can say this in the new low, but what's to say that technically if you start the count here, it's a first entry short, second entry short, count resets. You really only have a first entry short right now. So this would be the second entry short. And it comes up third entry short, but it's just not obeying the rules at this point, and it's a little ambiguous what's going on. You do have a clear new high here. It's a first entry long pullback, second entry long. You have a higher low here. I saw the higher low, but I just didn't like that it stopped short of breaking through the EMA. Orange down channel has broken, tested the low, so I'm thinking the downtrend has played out. It made a higher low here, but it's pretty close. It's hard to know to respect the EMA at this point because it was being respected here, but then it's kind of being respected here, some violations here, and then this noise here makes it a little confusing. But I marked it with a arrow, but I didn't really mark it as a trade. It just felt a little risky. Press to move up in this green up channel. Technically, you have a new low here. It's first entry short. You have a second entry short here, but it's not a good signal bar. Follow-up signal bar isn't bad, but I just didn't really like the setup. I wanted a lower high, preferably below the EMA to trust the continuation down. So then it creates a new high, first entry long, but like second entry long, technically a third entry long. So I didn't really see any clean setups. And when it gets up to here, there was some additional news announcements because I think Trump had a few comments today, and there was some market reaction to that, and that's where I put this blue dot. Because you can see from here, it's 7:53. You see all these candles printed right over to here, and it's still 7:53. And there's over 10 candles of 2,000 trades. I have no idea how much volume was traded in there, but it was clearly a lot. It flushes down. So this is telling me just to stay out. And there was no indication that this was going to happen because this happened at a random time of 7:53. Break of the green down channel, hits the bottom, then immediately it reverses. So there's another blue dot here. It's 7:55, and you can see all these candles printed. It's still under 1 minute. So it's hard to trade this and hard to trust anything. Creates a new high here. It's a first entry long, pullback, creates your second entry long here. I thought this was a possible trade. I like it in that the orange up channel has broken, made one attempt up, and you're thinking there's a second attempt up. The one thing I don't like about it is it's broken below the EMA, but it is a clean, measured 2 legs down. I like that it moved one tick below and then flushed, engulfed the mediocre signal bar, but it's a decent signal bar. Excuse me, mediocre signal bar, but a decent trigger bar. But I wanted to wait for a higher low above the EMA, preferably. You kind of get it right here, but by the time this candle forms, my concern is it kind of double topped here, and is it going to hit a resistance here or maybe here? Because it technically already tried 2 attempts. It's struggling here, so it's a higher low, but it's potentially hitting some kind of resistance here. In this case, if you did take the trade, you took it late, I think you would have gotten stopped out because it's 60, 74, 25. 60, well, I take that back. There is just enough for a 2-point scalp, but it feels dicey. The prices start flushing down. Here it creates a second entry long here. double bottom, but I call it an almost trade because it's a move down on this green down channel, broke, tested the low. It's bouncing off this double bottom, but it did make it's a bad signal bar, but the trigger bar is good. It moved one tick below and flushed up, totally engulfing the bad signal bar. So the trigger bar is nice, but the trigger bar also fell short of the EMA, and that's giving me some concern. Plus, if you want to take this trade, this is a 32 tick candle, which is huge, 8 points. That means you'd have to have one tick below, and even going for 2 point scalp, 3 point scalp, I don't know if you really want to push to go one for one. It just feels very dicey. So seeing that, I marked it as a almost trade because the risk is too high. Looking for a higher low, you technically get a higher low here, but it's already at the highs of the trading range. Creates a failed breakout and starts flushing back through. Creates a new high, first entry long pullback, second entry long failure. Second entry long failure, also called a almost trade. Granted, it is at the top of the range. It had a failed breakout and follow through, so it's pushing back down. It did close at the low. I do like this first entry, second entry failure. Plus, it moved one tick above, engulfed the signal bar. But the same problem with this candle exists. This is a 29 tick candle, which is, it just feels risky for the trade. And it just barely breached the EMA. So I'm looking for a lower high confirmation, ideally below the EMA, more into the range to feel confident this failed breakout's true. It's not going to be a breakout pullback. It does kind of push back down and through. Then it starts reversing back up, and it's kind of like on a bigger picture, a breakout pullback. But if you were only going for 1 point scalp or 2 points, you would have gotten it. But then you are risking 7 points, which doesn't feel worth it. Pushes up. This is actually where I draw this trend line coming down, turned it into a channel, but I don't really trust it because there's only one touch confirmation. All the other times you try to draw it upwards, it doesn't fit quite well. So I'm not trusting this for any long bounces, but maybe as a short trade. Prices move down. You have a new high, first entry long pullback, second entry long failure here. But you don't really you have a failure just barely. So this one confirms the failure. It feels a little bit early because this could be seen as a count reset. Technically, by the technical count, you have a first entry long pullback, second entry long failure here. It could also be just seen as a one big leg first entry long, and it could have still a second entry long, which does help the cause to go short, but I just didn't really feel this trade. Unfortunately, this lower high was the wrong color. Starts flushing down, bounces. You have a failed breakout of this potential range. New low, first entry short, pullback, second entry short, inside bar, signal bar. I don't like that. Too risky. Pushes up. It creates a new low here. It's a first entry short, pullback, second entry short. Second entry short. It is also a failed. I don't know why I have a 3 there. It's actually second entry long. I thought this is a possible trade. So you clearly have a new high. It's a first entry long pullback, second entry long push back up. There was a failed breakout. There is some kind of multiple test. Respect being paid to this resistance. Also a new low, first entry short, pullback, second entry short. Second entry short with a failed second entry long, double bar, not double bar, but 2 key entry points with the top of the range. You could say that's a third key entry point. So I thought it was a possible trade. It's a little more aggressive. The candle is a little smaller because it's only about 18 ticks. So there is enough room to the bottom of the range. A little bit too aggressive for me, so I left it alone. Creates another failed breakout here. And it kind of continues down. So it's a one leg down, pull back, second leg, watching it, and it doesn't move back into this trading range. And it starts moving down. EMA is starting to show strength. There's only a first entry short here. Technically, there's no second entry short. So I'm just watching and waiting. There's a second entry short here. It's a bad signal bar. It's above the EMA. At this point, I do draw this potential channel, but I don't really trust it too much. Break of the green up channel, test new high. Now it's reversing back down. First entry long pullback, second entry long, potentially a second entry long failure. It's a little far from the EMA. I'm not trusting it just yet. There is this orange down channel, so it could be break and test the low, but it kind of oscillates. So I was thinking maybe there's a trade, but these follow-up candles give me doubt because it's just kind of congested now. Pushes down, hits the new low. It's a first entry short, pullback, second entry short, bad signal bar. You leave it alone. Break of the green up channel, tests and makes new high. So I'm thinking, okay, this is just some kind of noisy mess right here, but there is more of a bearish bias than a bullish bias because EMA is starting to flush down. but I need a strong push below the EMA. So in a visual, you have a first entry short, pull back second entry short. I don't like the signal bar, inside bar, looking for a lower high. Unfortunately, you don't get that. Then it starts moving sideways. So you have a new low, first entry short, second entry short. Maybe you have a lower high here, but I didn't like how this one, all the previous lower highs were nice that it engulfed the previous, and this one just fell short. And then this blue dot appears because another something was announced where it caused this big oscillation. So these candles printed really quickly. So this is a 917, 917 14 seconds, 917 29 seconds, 917 53 seconds. So this printed really quickly. There is a new high, first entry long pullback, second entry long failure. The second entry long failure is more of an almost trade because there is a potential fail breakout here and a potential move back into range. It's a good signal bar, but taking a risk I didn't feel was worth it because this is a 18 tick candle on kind of a mediocre setup where it's in a trading range. It broke out, most likely it wants to move back in. It made a measured move already, so it made two clean legs down. The sell-off might have played out. Buyers might be coming back in, so it's just telling me to sit on hands. You don't know that it's going to flush down like this. Starts pushing. Again, this blue dot is another indication because I listened to the live Newswire stream and it's saying something was announced. I forgot if it was something with Japan or Trump or something, and it starts flushing back up. Again, this is very quick succession. All 1 minute, you get these big candles. Pushes up, fail breakout here, corresponding breakout here, and it kind of pushes back down. So I look to the left. I see all this noise, all these almost setups, potential setups. So I'm just kind of hanging up my hat at this point, not to be too ambitious because there's too much news coming out that potentially move the markets. Tariffs, agreements, something's happening with Trump discussing something or his team. So it just makes me extra cautious, especially when I already knew I had a profitable trade, not to uh, give back any of the profits today. So I'm just kind of sitting and I'm watching. So I have to be extra picky. Prices move down. It moves up in this green up channel. It kind of plays out, moves down to this orange down channel, creates a new low, say first entry short, pullback, second entry short. This is a really big engulfing second entry short. Unfortunately, stopped short of the EMA. It's ambiguous whether the EMA is important or not at this stage because if you look to the left, previously it was kind of respected as a support, respected as a resistance. It's ambiguous here. Again, respected as a resistance here. Then it just kind of prices are pushing above and below. Then it's being respected as a resistance here. But previously you already had 4 noticeable instances that I marked where news came out at a random time that really caused a lot of chop. So it's just making me super, I guess, super cautious and extra picky on the setups. And prices continue moving, pushes up. It creates this, so it's pushing up on this yellow up, orange up channel. Looks like it's 2 legs, 1 leg up, break, first attempt, second attempt. It creates a new high. It's a first entry long pullback. Second entry long also is technically a new low right about here. It's a first entry short, pullback, second entry short failure. Now, why did I take it here? Because I did a kind of a count here. It looks like a count reset. It's a first entry short. Technically, you have a second entry short. You could argue it's a third entry short. Didn't need to move that. But I saw it as kind of localized new low, first entry, second entry failure, and there's a triple test. Failed to break this resistance for whatever reason. The only thing I was thinking is if this is a possible trade, it is definitely more aggressive, but the risk is lower because this is the one few time today that you get a 6-tick candle. So maybe this is worth taking a trade. I would have been more likely to jump on it if it closed the high instead of so neutral, but it's kind of neither here nor there. You just kind of get this candle. In the moment I decide to skip it, and it kind of flushes up. Pushes up, gets pretty noisy. You got a first entry long pullback. You technically have a second entry long here, but it's a inside bar. Also a new low. It's just a first entry short. You don't really get any clean setup here. Pushes down on this orange down channel. Then it kind of turns into a more shallow green down channel. No real clean way to create a channel that engulfs both of these. There is kind of a setup here, but I didn't really like it. It's a new low. It's a first entry short pullback, second entry short. I like that it moved 1 tick above and flushes down. But by the time this candle closes, it's the one candle that has made the new low of day, which is this red dotted line. No other candle has been down here yet for today. So it feels like taking an entry here, you'd have to have taken it on the engulfing to enter before this closes, because after this closes, I'd be reluctant to try to take a trade here off this kind of ambiguous mediocre setup. You could argue that there is a green down channel. It tested once, twice. This is a fourth test. But the fourth test, even if you took it here and you have a nice fitting channel down here, you really only have about one, maybe 6 ticks to get out. Normally, if this setup was somewhere else, not making a new low, is something you might be worth consider taking. But this one candle has just made a new low. So if you entered one tick below, you're asking for another push down, which may or may not happen. Ideally, this setup would have been kind of like over here in the meat of the move of the day. So you don't have to worry about hitting the low of day and asking prices to continue making new lows of the day. But it does, like if you did take this trade, you would have gotten filled. You'd have to sit in this candle, which is 23 ticks, but you wouldn't even put your stop here. You'd likely put it up here. You have to sit through this noise, take some heat before it reverses down. This just wasn't worth it. Again, here, depending on how many ticks you're going for, I would only go for probably 5 ticks. So I need to get that at 44.25. In my case, I would have gotten out. But if you're trying to go for anything more, your profit target would be down here, and likely this candle, one of these two, would have stopped you out. Prices continue moving, flushes up, pushes back down. No clean entries. This is a new high, first entry long, second entry long, second entry long below the EMA, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Not a clean setup, no justification to take that trade. Pushes down, break of the green down channel, makes 2 attempts down, makes a new low. So it's a first inch short, technically a second inch short, but these candles are 2 side by side. In real time, you're just watching these form. You finally get your second entry short here. Then you're thinking maybe there's a second entry short failure. You kind of get a second entry short failure, but you also see a potential trading range. So you could be range bound, and it just feels a little dicey. Plus, you're getting close to the end of the day. Didn't mean to do that. Whoops. I don't know why. Didn't mean to have the chart jump like that. Let's see. Okay, let's go back. All right, here we go. You're thinking potential trading range, it breaks out and it starts moving up. No clean second entries. Things are just getting a little congested. It's a first entry long here. Technically, you don't really quite have a second entry. It could always be just one leg, pull back. Now you do have a potential second entry long as soon as it breaks above this guy, which it does, but then it doesn't feel safe. It just kind of closes. I did have this transparent up channel drawn at this point, but it's hard to trust and it's really late in the day. So I'm not willing to give back any profits on a potential trade on a Friday where I'm already up and I could potentially be giving it back and walking away with a red day on a Friday, which would, I don't know, it would affect me mentally over the weekend. So why would you even do that on a kind of a mediocre setup? The prices continue moving, kind of chops and then moves into the close. So it was a really, really noisy day affected by a lot of news releases that the market took one way or the other. Economic data at 5:30, and then a less impact, well, supposedly less impact news, which is, I guess, the consumer sentiment and inflation data, which did apparently result in a big impact. Then the blue dots were announcement by Trump, press conferences by Trump. It was just a really noisy day made for trading that was hard to super trust the price action because the setup and price action could be good, but any kind of catalyst like a news announcement about something that we're going to do or the US is going to do could cause these big moves to happen that could, easily stop you out. Even if you get the direction correct, it could just be this knee-jerk reaction that flushes up, flushes down, takes your stop, and then continues going the direction you actually thought it was going to go. So it just kind of made for a extra cautious day. Fortunate to just take my one trade in the early morning before this noise and this nonsense happened. And yeah, had I known, I think I would have probably just taken this trade and walked away because this did take some concentration and watching, and it wasn't the most it didn't feel super reliable, especially when you're listening to the news stream and you see the reaction that happens. So hopefully that was helpful.